Caddis Maximus here, this time with a review of the Harbor Freight 9-piece nut and bolt extractor socket set. For the price, these really aren't so bad. And one thing about extractor sockets is you actually want to collect up a variety of them, because depending on the fastener and its situation, etc., one type of extractor socket may be better than another. And when you start looking at them, you can find that there's dozens of different styles of rounded bolt extractor sockets, like those Duralast grip type style sockets I reviewed just a little while ago. These are the Harbor Freight units, and we'll give you a nice close look. They actually look pretty nice. And then they have, I can't remember what this design is called, but it's like a sawtooth or a wedge type. And we'll show you how that works. These are sized really tight, and then you put them on the fastener, and as you try to rotate it, these little corners contact the edge of the fastener and really bite in and actually shave up a bit of metal to get a really tight grip. One thing to note about these is if they slip on a fastener, they will machine it round, and so if it wasn't fully rounded before and these slip, it will be rounded afterwards. Really rounded. But the fortunate thing is because of the way these are designed, they're also slightly tapered, so they'll fit tight, and then you tap them down. And because of that, they're actually chrome molybdenum, and we can show that here. And so that would be the idea, is you find the one of these that is the tightest fitting, and then you hammer it down, and then you try to extract it. And we can see the drive end has nice divots and is properly fluted. And so that's also why I'd recommend getting both the metric and the standard set, because sometimes one size, once you've rounded a fastener or started to damage it, a imperial fastener may be more easily extracted with a metric socket and vice versa. And one of the things I mean by that, let me go and show you between the 5/16 and the 8mm. Another thing to mention is that these have especially thick walls on them, which is pretty nice. You don't have to worry about at least a socket stripping or cracking. Excuse me, not stripping, but breaking on you. But that will mean that they may not fit in the tightest of spaces. And now as far as the taper, I'll demonstrate that here. We have the 8mm and we have the 5/16. So this right here is, here we go. This is an 8mm little nut. And if we put it into the 8mm socket, even though we can see it's fluted fairly deep, when we put the socket on it, and this is a new fastener, you can see it stops flush there where it starts hitting the taper. But one thing about when the nuts or bolts are stripped or starting to strip is that in this case the 5/16 is actually a little bit tighter. So if this were starting to strip out, I would actually use it in the 5/16, and when it's new, it's obvious because we can't even push it but halfway into the socket. And so that's one reason to get both the metric and standard. There is one caveat to these, and I'll show that here. Let me find the 14mm and the 9/16. We have a 14mm fastener here. And one issue is the fastener is obviously flush to something, and we'll use this 9/16. This socket won't be able to get deep enough onto the fastener, and so it'll be really loose. And I'm just using that as an example. So sometimes that can be an issue where it's in between sizes, where the more properly sized 14mm still is a little loose. We can see that even on the 14mm that this bolt would need to go in that quite a bit deeper to get that really solid connection. But when it's out further, those little tines rock closer to the edge of the bolt, and we'll show on the 9/16. And in a worst case scenario, these are so close to the edge that all they do is just round it out a little more. And that's what I mean. You do have to be careful, because if these are loose fittings or loose fitting, then you're likely just to cause more damage to the fastener. And that's why you want to have like spiral extractors and spline extractors, etc. And I'll do a big extractor video one of these days. Anyway, I just want to bring your attention to these. They're actually pretty nice, and for the style, they're kind of unique. You don't see this style very often, but they work very well when you get just the right sized extractor socket matched to the fastener. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching. Please subscribe. Caddis Maximus out.